Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to our update as far as the Middle East goes for the week of October 10th. As we look back, it's the eve before Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Make sure you grab the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this because there's always much more information there and photos, etc. And that should just be a link on the YouTube page. Again, this is October 10th, and we'll look back upon the events of this last week in regards to Israel and the Middle East. We always begin with our news bites. Interesting that because we just went through the 1 year memorial, can't call it an anniversary, of remembering the horrific events of October 7th. I found it interesting that the polls indicate that it's not just Hamas, but all Palestinians. Listen to this. 98% of Palestinians said that October 7th, the events that transpired there, made them proud. Raping, killing, the massacre, burning babies, made them proud. Again, news bites. Up to this time, and this is a bit off because I know there's been more rockets that have been launched since this, but as of last Tuesday, 26,240 rockets, missiles, and drones have been launched towards Israel's airspace since October 7th. Over 26,000. How many rockets would be launched from Mexico into San Diego before the United States would say enough is enough, etc.? So, in a surprise speech on Tuesday, Hezbollah's current figurehead, Naim Qassem, we think he's still alive, for the first time has signaled readiness to enter a ceasefire with Israel with no preconditions. The truth is Hezbollah is bleeding to death, literally, and will do anything right now to get a ceasefire. The United States, this is again another source, the United States and Arab states have begun to launch covert talks with Iran because remember, Iran is who's sponsoring all of the 7 different fronts that are going up against Israel right now. And so the U.S. and Arab states have launched sort of covert talks with Iran for a comprehensive ceasefire that's aimed at calming all fronts all at once. And then we just read, and maybe even the return of the hostages. We'll have to wait and see about that. And then Defense Minister Gallant, we're going to talk here in a moment about post-Yom Kippur and the retaliation of Israel to the 200 ballistic rockets and missiles that were sent from Iran. But Gallant's gone on to say, our attack will be deadly, precise, and above all, surprising. And they will not understand what happened and how it took place. Interesting. So, with everybody sort of waiting with bated breath, because I do not think Israel is going to do anything pre-Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, literally, the nation shuts down. Airports closed, freeways, you name it, everything is shut down. And this year, that will be Friday Eve when the sun goes down to Saturday Eve when the third star comes out. And so the bottom line is until that takes place, I don't think Israel will retaliate, but soon after, And so let's take a moment and think what options Israel actually has at this point in time. So one is, and we're hearing this, that they could take this opportunity to bomb Iran's nuclear sites. And many in the world are saying, please do that. I just read one of the leading candidates for Prime Minister of Canada in the next election said, please do it. You will be doing humanity a great favor. I know some of our Congress people are saying, please, this is the opportunity. But keep in mind that the Biden administration has said that's a big no. They could bomb military sites, strike Iran's cluster of missiles and drone bases. They could bomb the oil fields. Iran's oil industry is quite exposed. They could attack these economic targets, and it could have a larger impact on Iran because of how their economy is struggling. I will say this, is that besides the no from Biden with the nukes, he's also said, no, do not strike the oil fields. And you can understand why. Iran is threatening that if their oil fields are struck, they will launch against the Saudis in Kuwait and take out as best as they can their oil production as well. Think about what that does globally, especially with the elections right around the corner, right? The fourth, long shot, but I'm not going to put anything past Israel at this point in time. They could actually take out the Ayatollah, which would create possibly a total regime change in Iran. So those are some of the options on the table. Again, not until after Yom Kippur, but we have to take that wait and see approach. But remember, if we turn that hourglass over and the sand is running out, there's only 26 now, I think it is, days until the U.S. elections. And keep in mind, the biggest obstacle for Israel today in terms of attacking Iran is Joe Biden. Biden is boycotting Netanyahu. Behind his back, he's invited the defense minister Gallant to come. Netanyahu has said, no, that is not going to happen. No doubt there is friction between these two leaders. But once again, we're 48 hours away. So, Biden, this is our articles this week, Biden's actually offering compensation to Israel if they do not strike the oil fields and if they do not strike the potential nuclear sites. And so what does he offer? It says the Biden administration, the compensation package that they're offering their Israeli counterparts, are you ready for this? Extensive diplomatic backing and additional military aid. What a deal. Sinwar's resurfaced. Interesting. He's resurfaced, and don't kid yourself. Sinwar has no desire whatsoever of releasing any of the hostages. But as he's resurfaced, he wants everybody to be a martyr. It's time for suicide bombings everywhere. He wants everybody to be a martyr except for himself. So he appears to want to have discussions on the conditions that Israelis will not kill him during the negotiations of a deal. Once again, he's surrounded himself with living hostages to protect himself. I don't believe there's any desire whatsoever. He wants to string this out as long as possible. I normally don't do this, but I think this article from Joel Rosenberg is very important for us to hear. I know there are a lot of evangelicals that are questioning what should we do at this particular time. And I think this is something to consider and to understand. So, All Israel News, Joel Rosenberg, the renowned, very well-known novelist or whatever, an Israeli Jew, again, he writes, and yet a messianic as well. So he writes to evangelicals saying, please pray without ceasing. He says, let me be clear, I don't want war. As an Israeli and as an evangelical, this long and bitter and tragic war and all the death and suffering and pain grieves me deeply. But the Bible does say that there is a time for war and a time for peace. That's Ecclesiastes, as you know. He says, this is a time for war. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Remember, Israel didn't start this war, Iran did. The regime in Tehran has vowed to annihilate us. They and their terror proxies have already been attacking us nonstop for a year. Enough is enough. The only way to end this war is to end the Iranian regime and its ability to annihilate us. So I ask evangelicals all over the world to pray. Pray without ceasing that God will grant the Israeli government wisdom and courage, that Israel will achieve total victory over all of our enemies, that we will get all of our hostages back, that God will heal every Israeli, every Palestinian, every Lebanese citizen who's been traumatized by this war, that a great spiritual awakening will break out through the entire epicenter, that Israel would be able to make peace treaties with the Saudis and many others, and that then lasting calm, quiet, and security would become a reality and beyond in this region. Dark days, I know, lie ahead of us, but I have great hope for the future, and I pray you do as well. That's again Joel Rosenberg. And then our good friend Amir Tsarfati, a couple things from him. If you're not receiving his information, it is thorough. It is, go to Telegram, sign up for Amir. You're going to get the truth from a Messianic Jew's perspective of what's going on in the world today. So the first, there's two here. The first is what I entitled, But God. He says, within 10 minutes, the entire situation in the Middle East flipped. When God intervenes, things move fast. The monster called Hezbollah, which Israel had dreaded for decades, entered a state of shock that within 2 to 3 weeks has led ultimately to its complete collapse. Iran's crown jewel is bleeding to death. Since then, the number of rockets and missiles fired towards Israel should by all means have caused thousands of casualties. And here's that word, but God. We are witnessing miracles that only can be compared to epic biblical accounts such as the crossing of the Red Sea or the Jordan River. Pray, stand firm, stand on the unwavering word of God, the plan of God, the heart of God for his nation. And then he goes on to say, more from Amir, the IDF is currently destroying the last Hamas strongholds in northern Gaza. As I speak, that is taking place. It's imposed a complete blockade on the Jabalia camp, where a few thousand terrorists still remain. About 200 civilians have been ordered to evacuate the area along a designated route towards the humanitarian area of Khan Younis. Once northern Gaza is fully cleared, the IDF will take over the responsibility. They'll move UNRWA out of the way, which needs to happen, and they will be distributing the humanitarian aid to the population. And this will end Hamas's civilian rule. In the north, Hezbollah is retreating from its front lines. They can't leave fast enough. They're leaving behind hundreds of millions of worth of weapons and infrastructure. And then, listen, both Hezbollah and Hamas still have some rockets left, but it's estimated to be about 10% of what they had when the war began a year ago. And now it's Iran's turn to face the consequences. And Amir writes, as we've been speaking, by next week, after Yom Kippur, the mission will be completed. A couple other articles that I'll leave for you because I like to keep this around that 15-minute mark is about from the BBC, as well as the polls in Israel in terms of Bibi Netanyahu and Likud. And again, as we end, as crazy as the world is and all that UNRWA has done, as you know, UNRWA, many in UNRWA have come out quite candidly as being Hamas operatives. So UNRWA, in the middle of everything that's taken place, retains the Nobel Peace Prize candidacy, despite evidence proving that it's tied to Hamas. The Nobel Peace Prize to UNRWA? You've got to be kidding. Sharon and I and a few other of our friends are going on a sort of a private holy ground tour, we're going to Israel. We're going to Israel in less than 2 weeks now, or actually 3 weeks. I think it's 18 days. And we'll be distributing aid and assisting ministries that we're connected with. Again, our friend once said to us that at this point in time, Israel doesn't need visitors, but it needs friends. And as friends to Israel, we're going. So please keep us in your prayers. And until next week, and I think a lot is going to happen, may God watch over you and protect you. May you remember to be a prayer warrior, watchman on the wall. Make a stand. Remember to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless you, and shalom.